Field by field, Maizex is bringing Canadian seed to farmers across Canada. Maizex is your source for high-performance soybeans and grain, silage, and grazing corn hybrids. Visit maizex.com to find your local Maizex representative.
I'm Lindsay Smith with RealAgriculture.com and Real Ag Radio, and joining me on the line now is Minister Rob Flack with the Ontario Ministry of, let's see if I get this right, Agriculture, Food, and Agribusiness. Welcome here, Minister.
Perfect.
I got it. I did it first try.
Thank you. Got the name perfectly right.
All right. Wonderful. Okay, so it was a busy week this week, of course, and we saw a key announcement for Ontario's beef producers. Tell me about the announcement this week and, of course, what went into getting us to this point.
Well, I can say that Premier Ford has been very supportive of agri-food in this province, and under his leadership, our government are doing two things this week for Ontario beef farmers. First, which is really good news and needed news for our industry, is we're enabling beef farmers in this province to access up to now $500 million to get low-interest financing to support the short-term needs and long-term growth of the feeder cattle cooperatives in the province and their members. There's 800 farmers in the province that are in this program, and importantly, Lindsay, 41% of them are less than the age of 40. So this program really is supporting the succession planning, the needed growth of young farmers to make sure that there's food on everybody's plate in the province.
I mean, you make a really key point that this is, of course, a program that is accessed by perhaps the next generation, the upcoming generation in the cattle business here in Ontario. This was a significant increase to the feeder financing program. Was that a message brought to you by the Beef Farmers of Ontario, by members of the province, that this program really needed more funding to really be effective?
100%. So really in my first days as minister here, I've been on what I call the listening and learning tour. And one of the first things I heard from the Beef Farmers of Ontario was the need for this program to get more, to grow the program. We were at $260 million, and we increased it to $500 million. Why? I think most people know in the cattle industry, the price of beef, the price of live cattle have gone up very much in the last few years. The grower we're at, the McRae's, earlier in the week, when he first got into it, a calf was $1,000, went to $1,500, then $1,900, and this fall we're predicting, $2,400, $2,600. So they just didn't have enough room in the feeder cattle loan guarantee program. They needed more assistance, needed to grow the program. So we increased it by $240 million.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now the other announcement this week, $2 million over 4 years for the Ontario Beef Market Development Program. What is this program? Why is this funding so important?
We are an exporting province, and we've got 12,700 and change beef farmers in the province with a strong processing sector, with close to $2 billion in farm cash receipts in the beef sector, and we export our product. So we need to make sure that we support the Beef Farmers of Ontario and the entire industry to make sure that we create the environment for that export growth and domestic consumption to continue. So supporting local trade shows. It's supporting when you look abroad and people go to the States, per se, and promote Ontario corn-fed beef, as an example. We're supporting the industry, creating the environment for the industry to help grow consumption of beef, not only in the province, but throughout North America and abroad.
Now, both of these announcements, of course, come just really a short time since the labor disruption at the Cargill Guelph plant. Did you hear in your listening and learning tour, did you hear about the impacts of the closure of that plant and get feedback from producers on the impacts that had on the cattle industry here in Ontario?
Lindsay, I'd say I heard that loud and clear. That was on my radar from the day I was sworn in. And, it was very concerning. Obviously, very happy to see that labor dispute settled and back to work, because cattle were starting to back up, heavy cattle were starting to back up, and we didn't want to get them docked, and they were starting to travel across the country to go to Alberta to be processed and into the States. So obviously, diesel economics plays into that factor, raising the price of the cost of transportation and hurting our farms in terms of what they would receive. So ultimately, it's a good news story that we got it settled. They're the biggest processor in the province, and we need them at work day in and day out. And it's good news conclusion.
Mm-hmm. All right, final question, Minister. In thinking about, supporting the industry in this way and having Guelph back online, what do you see as, the future for cattle feeding here in Ontario?
Well, it's going to grow. Lindsay, as I've been telling everyone since I was in high school a gazillion years ago, the province has more than doubled in size. And consumption of beef, chicken, pork, all the protein sources, everything grown in Ontario continues to be of the utmost importance to our government because people need to eat. And we also export more food than we consume. $26.2 billion left the province last year, of which 80% went to the United States. It's an important industry, the cattle industry, from farm gate to the consumer's plate. It will continue to be, as I think I said earlier. Last year we exported or we produced close to $2 billion of on-farm cash receipts. And think of what that turned into as it's processed, further processed, and exported throughout North America and the world. It's a key driver in the ag economy, and it's going to continue to grow. In Ontario, we have a GDP. In Ontario, we have a GDP of $48.8 billion, nearly $50 billion, of which 26.6 as well is exported to the U.S. We have 836,000 jobs from farm gate to consumer's plate, which, by the way, is more than the auto sector. So we have a big, growing, and sustainable industry, and the beef sector is ultimately an important part of that base and that growth.
All right, Minister Flack, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Lindsay. Have a great day and a great week.